but that's why
Yeah.
I don't have time to keep track of every single league, man. So I really
I'm
only try
not
to focus
as
on
into
one.
college football as I used to be. They've just changed so much. It's just,
Yeah.
this is the first year they're doing a 12 team playoff format, which will be interesting to
I
see. But
don't even
ironically,
talk. The
ironically
playoff thing has
enough,
been
well,
completely pointless. They should have kept it as a bowl system and left it alone.
FSU was one of the ones that were pushing for that 12 team format because of
Well,
last
I just
year's situation.
so so my problem has always been in regards to the playoff system that if you're going to have an actual playoff system, it helps to have an objective ranking system.
Yeah,
And the ranking system has never been argued that it is objective.
right.
So I don't know why they even pretended that they could do this objectively when no one believes that they were objective about anything, have been objective about anything with the rankings. But anyways, I'm not even going to mention UCF. But
Oh, we'll see
so,
what
and they're not the
happens.
only ones that have gotten hosed, but they're just the ones that are most blatant about it. So, anyways,
Yeah, I haven't.
talking
I
about
was.
getting hosed, let's talk about some Wish and OSHA, huh?
Yeah, let's do it. And let's see who we got on here right now. Obviously, Don, good to have you back. Shelly, good to have you back. I see a couple other familiar faces, and I guess we're doing something right. I feel like we've been talking about some random topics these past couple weeks, but in a good manner, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's well, you know what it is.
It's
I think it's stuff that people are kind of intrigued about because they
yes,
either know
agree.
about it peripherally and they just find out a little bit more. Now, I will say this one is one we are diving into quite a bit of legalese, and we are not lawyers, so we would highly, highly, highly
Disclaimer.
recommend before you make any kind of action based on what we talk about, that you speak to a lawyer in that area to confirm that our analysis is accurate, right? We are in Florida. I have with the consulting firm worked with people all over the U.S. and outside of the U.S. But normally when we do something like this, we'll look at every single alphabet agency for a period of about 45 to 60 days on just research, just to make sure that we're not guiding our client in the incorrect direction, right? So I feel pretty confident about what we're going to be saying today, but I just want to make sure that the caveat is there in case someone does decide, hey, I'm going to follow these two guys' letter of the law right out the gate, and they live 3,000 miles away, so uh, from the borders of Washington State. So
I should have made a
every
poll,
state.
but for those that are in here, is anybody currently located in Washington State? You can just throw an emoji or just put something in our chat.
So every state has an OSHA department, just like they have a health department, right? So everybody's going to be a little bit different. A lot of times, what we find is that okay, well, it's kind of like when you go to your friend's house and then you go to your family's house and you're looking for stuff in the kitchen. You know that there's cups, you know that there's plates, you know that there's silverware, but they just organize it differently, right? So a lot of times those are the differences that we find is that when we're comparing federal to state versus different states, it's not a matter of whether they have the same rules. It's really more of how did they decide to term it and where did they decide to put it? So a funny one for me is I don't know if you know this, Ray. So
Hmm,
technically the Florida Department of Agriculture oversees the whole marijuana industry in the state of Florida.
I knew that.
So they're technically in healthcare because they
Yeah,
also oversee the medical marijuana aspect.
yeah.
Wild because it's medical, but that's a whole nother bag of tricks. But it's the way that they structured the laws in the state and then delegated that out to the different departments. So WISHA is just OSHA, but for Washington State. This one should be pretty quick just because there aren't that many differences per se, other than to say, as with most states, and even federal regulations, they'll always have a caveat. It's like that fine lettering at the bottom of the page. When in doubt or when in conflict with another similar regulation, the one that is most strict is the one you need to follow.
Which is usually the state, correct?
N-
In this,
Not always.
okay,
Not always. Generally, it's more specific when the state writes it rather than the federal government because, it's the federal government. Ask
right,
them to be clear about anything. I'll wait. So, and then because of the
never,
frequency in which, um, federal government is far more volatile than state governments tend to be. You see gradual changes in state government, whereas in federal government you'll see spikes and dips, and there'll be major movements. So it benefits the federal government to make laws that are a little bit more opaque, not necessarily vague, but a little bit more opaque. And then let the states do whatever the hell they want to do, right? And that's
right,
kind of normally how that goes, especially when it comes to tax law. That's the one that everybody tends to know more because that's the one that's in the news more, right? But when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to OSHA, which is what we're talking about today, the states can be a little bit more specific, and they tend to be, and they tend to also focus on major industries, right? So Washington, you're going to see that if you actually looked up WISHA versus OSHA, they're going to be a lot more strict in regards to like fishing. Why? It's a major agricultural piece, right? You're going to be there are some differences on the healthcare side of things, which is what we talk about. Some of the major differences that we saw, just so that way, we're just give the plot away real quick, and we can kind of dive into details or dive into questions about stuff. For example, in regards to the accident prevention program, um, how you have to document it, whether you have to document, where was the document that I had? All right, so yeah, so WISHA regulates almost all employees and employers, including temporary agency workers. So that's something that we normally don't really see because a temporary agency worker would be covered under the temporary agency.
right.
So if I'm using a staffing agency in Washington for my MAs or for my front desk people or for my providers, then, not just is the staffing agency required to do all the OSHA stuff with them, but we are too. Volunteer workers who receive any compensation or benefit. So if you work at a free clinic and you got, hey, doc, I need a quick Z pack because my allergies are kicking up. Guess what? You're also there, even if you're working for free, because that's considered a benefit.
Interesting.
So, I mean, you can find that these are a little bit more stringent, but it just takes one. This one in Wish it looks like it just takes one step further. It's not as bad or invasive as the My Health My Data that Washington passed recently that you and I were looking at for a client.
Yep.
Because that one was one that if you don't want to deal with Washington right now if you're in healthcare, because the My Health My Data Act, it made a lot more people covered entities that weren't normally covered entities. And so it requires them to do a lot of fun stuff. All the stuff that covered entities have to do. So technically, for a little bit of background, OSHA was created in 71 and Washington was
Yeah,
created 2 years
73.
afterwards. Yes, 2 years afterwards. So I mean, there again, federal government does something, the states will go and create their own interpretation. Um, I had one more thing for the differences. There's certain things that they also have a hazardous drug exposure and some stringent more stringent requirements, some hazards not listed by OSHA. This is coming from a legal website. They have which requires all employees to show proof of the Hep B immunization, whereas OSHA only asks that you suggest it. This is saying
They're
no, you
requiring
have
it,
to
you
take
said?
it. You have to require it because you have to show proof of the immunization. Whereas in most states, especially in Florida, we have to offer it, but we don't have to, they don't have to take it.
Right. And then, but
You
they
have
do,
to.
they still, you still want to document it though.
No, absolutely. But you want to have a that's where you would document, hey, Bobby
I'm,
decided not to go for the
I'm just thinking
immunization.
of from EPICompliance standpoint, these are forms that we provide our customers. And I believe one
Yeah.
is if they refuse, you still want to document, but they will essentially fill out that document versus the one that shows that, yes, I did get this Hep B on this date, at this time.
On a
Um,
risk management side of things, risk management for the practice, on a risk management side of things, I want to document even more specifically those employees that choose not to take it than the ones that do.
right,
And the reason is if something happens and they opted not to take it, we can wash our hands and say, nah, boo boo, we offered it to you and you chose not to. That's on you. It's called personal responsibility. Grow the bloody hell up. You know what I mean? Like, that makes it a decision on the employee. In this scenario for Washington, they don't give you an option. You have to take it. You have to document that everybody has it. But
right.
that would mean that you have to document it and you'd have to have proof of it for every temp worker, every regular worker, every part-timer, everybody that's involved with the organization. So that's a little bit different. Excuse me. It makes HR a little bit more valuable, I guess, because everybody that steps into work in any kind of fashion, you got to make sure they've got that. Um, I would be curious to dive in and see if it was also in regards to interns
Mhm.
that you would have to do it. I imagine if it was like an externship with a program, like an MA program or a rad tech program or a phlebotomy program, they would probably already force the immunization on the students. But I really don't know on that piece. That would be an interesting. I could see it going either way, right? Like I could see WISHA saying, no, screw it. You're getting in there. You got to have it done. I forced it on everybody else. Why not you? Um, but I could also see the other route of it's an internship. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like, are they really going to be doing this on their own? But it just depends. I think it would depend on. I think it would depend. I would probably err on the side of get the immunization for anybody that has it, and then go from there. Just for that kind of scenario, right? Obviously, you still have to do the annual training and the onboarding training. If you're not doing an OSHA training for annual and for as soon as you brought them on, I don't want to know about it. Get it done. Like do not put in writing anywhere. I highly recommend that. Um, just get it done. It does not matter. It never matters. I could have just left my boss, my prior organization, and I just got these things done. Does not matter. You still have to do it immediately upon hiring. If you
These,
don't, you run the risk. Go ahead.
I was going to say, obviously, we're located in Florida, so we've dealt with, obviously through EPICompliance, we've dealt with some customers located here in Florida being inspected by the Florida Department of Health. Not to compare apples to apples, but I know, and the Florida Department of Health, it seems like they're more strenuous or more strict on like the hazardous waste, medical waste side of things here, um, which is,
So it's always going to be based on every department is going to have a hit list, for lack of a better term, right? They're going to focus on certain things, but if they catch other stuff on the way, you're going to have some fines on your hands, right? I would be
well,
curious to see if OSHA and WISHA stack, but it looks as though OSHA doesn't exist in Washington because it is WISHA.
right.
So it would be a matter of you'd be paying the state any OSHA fines. But you're gonna find that anytime there's a major news story or something hits the news the next 3 years, everything is based on that.
You know,
All the hits are based on that.
I was trying to find, maybe some healthcare companies in Washington that were heavily fined. I couldn't really find a whole lot.
I'm
Which
sure
I
that
found was kind of
I'm
interesting.
sure there's a database somewhere around here that we could
That's
find that stuff because that's all
what I was
public
looking for.
information, right? Which actually, speaking of, we probably need to do another no-no list. Um, no-no list
I
cast and
was meaning to
see.
ask you a little off topic, but it does sort of have to do with HIPAA security. What's your cell phone? So you use AT&T?
My personal is T-Mobile.
Their or last Tuesday, their server was I don't know if it was hacked. They haven't necessarily.
The AT&T one, right? Is that the one
Yeah.
you're talking about?
Yeah, my phone was I have AT&T. My phone was stuck in and it's funny because not all AT&T phones were affected by this, but mine was affected, my younger brother's was affected. My parents were okay. We all have AT&T. But when it was stuck in SOS mode for about 12 hours. I couldn't text, couldn't call, and
Yeah. So, and it's interesting
but
how they don't have to do very much at all when it comes to the information that hackers get from that. But that's a whole nother bag of tricks. We can talk about that in a minute. Let's focus on
I know
OSHA
I
and
was
WISHA
gonna
real
say
quick. But
that might be something to dive into
I
maybe.
mean, I'll tell you right now, at most, AT&T
Recent.
is going to reach out to the people they think are effective and preempt the lawsuit and just say, we're going to buy LifeLock for you for a year. And that's all they're going to do. They're not going to do anything else.
Yeah, I
Um,
gotta see. I mean, it was a nationwide thing.
no, yeah,
So,
yeah. But that's if they find out you were affected and if you complain enough. That's all they're going to do
oh yeah,
because
yeah.
they don't have to follow the same laws. Um, but when it comes to OSHA and WISHA, it's it's in any state for that matter, right? Like you have to know what the rules are. You have to, the basics are always going to be on the federal side. The state side is going to decide, okay, because I have more experience and I happen to be around during this time period, I'm going to write in this law and this expansion. And why isn't that added? This needs to get added. You're going to find that stuff all the time.
Oh yeah.
You're going to find different definitions for different things. You'll find things in different ways. Like this one is, I believe that WISH is its own department, or is it under the Washington Health Department?
It's Division of Occupational Safety and Health. It's called the
Yeah.
DOSH.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So they have their own. So this would be under the health department. Whereas, for example, in Florida, there are two separate departments because federal runs OSHA here in Florida. What that I imagine that would also mean is that you're going to have, if it's a state department, the frequency with which you're going to be inspected will probably be higher because they have fewer places, and the state of Washington's financially incentivized to make sure that you're running smoothly. And at the end of the day, money talks, right? If when it comes to budget season, which speak of the devil, we just started the new fiscal year for the federal government, right? So
Yep.
when it comes to budget time, how much money is brought in is just as important as how much money goes out. So all of these departments, they do have a financial component in there. So you want to be aware. And as soon as you hang one flag for anything, know that these auditors talk to the other auditors from other departments. So you're going to have a higher likelihood of risk being audited for a different department. So if you screw up something like OSHA and WISHA, assume that, oh, well, the fire department's going to come through a little bit more often. Oh, look, no, you're going to have this come through a little bit more often. You're going to have that come through a little bit more often. And it's just random, right? You're the one person in a family of 20 going on an airplane, but they're going to stop you. And once they stop you, for whatever reason, you're the one that's going to get stopped the whole way through. So
Let me ask
it's
you
the same
this.
thing.
Let me ask you
Go
this
ahead.
question, Jose. Let's just say I had a practice in Washington and,
Mhm.
maybe I'm using a compliance program that protects me on the federal level of things. Do I need to have another program specific to
All
my
right.
state or, and you know what I'm getting at
So
here, like
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
EPICompliance, a lot of what
so
we do is at the federal level, but, I know
let's
from, go ahead, go ahead. What's your answer?
let's just be completely transparent, right?
Yeah.
Um, if I'm a client of EPICompliance or any of your competitors, right? No matter how good that system is, they cannot provide you specifically the client, for every single client, a customized policy and procedure for everything. It is impossible.
Agree.
Let me take that back. It's not impossible. It's highly improbable, for especially for the price that you're going to pay. If you want completely customized, that's where you would come to a lawyer or a consultant, or the lawyer would come to a consultant on the back end and say, hey, this is what I need. In order to do that, remember, it's got to be updated annually, reviewed and updated annually. You're looking at, on a small practice, we used to do this for between $3,000 to $7,000 for a complete set of policies and procedures. But now you have to build that into your budget. It may be less year 2, year 3, and then we revamp everything year 4, or year 5. But you're still looking at $1,500 to $2,000 to review and update.
Right.
So no matter what, you need, when you have access to a vendor like EPICompliance, you need to go through and figure out what you want to customize for your practice. This goes back to the culture of compliance, right? Like, if let's go to the easy and obvious one, right? Disaster preparedness. You need to prepare for different kinds of disasters depending on where you are. Whether you're in Washington, whether you're in Southern California, whether you're in Oklahoma, whether you're in Florida, whether you're in Ohio, North Dakota, New York, you need to take a look at what it is. Use those policies and procedures that you're paying for as a roadmap. This is the information that I need in order to comply. Right now, when it comes to state specific stuff, you can go and this is where you should have the question with your vendor to say, hey, do you have a state specific for X? And some of them will just go ahead and create it based on the regulation, because they
That's
already
what
have
we've
85% of it done based on the federal one.
we've done that for a few Florida customers that were,
Every system will do that. And then
yeah.
normally what'll happen is that you'll have on their database, you'll have like disaster preparedness, Southeast, disaster preparedness, Florida, disaster preparedness, Texas. And they'll base it off of the specific jurisdiction that is different than the defaulted one.
Right.
Right. So that way it's easier to find. You find that a lot. It's pretty common. So what you want to do is you want to ask the questions. All right, we have a state specific this. Do you handle that? Do you have that? Do you not have that? What is the lead time? Is there a separate price for that? There shouldn't be a separate price because it's kind of what you're paying for, right? No matter what, though, you're still, even after the company does a state specific one for you, for your state, you still need to customize it for you, your practice. Let's look at an OSHA one that would that you're definitely going to have to always adjust, right? Your PPE. Where do you store your PPE? How do you store your PPE? Every office is different. Oh, I don't have a cabinet. I have a closet. Oh, I don't have a closet. I use, it's in the manager's office. Like however your physical location is set up, you need to document that adjustment. It's just good policy. It's just good sense. And every time you make a customization, what you want to do is you want to just turn around and do a 5-minute training with your staff on, hey, this is where it is. Keep moving forward. Just 5 minutes. If you're not meeting with your staff at least once a month, just to, hey, look, this is what we're doing, this is what we're not doing, just in general, just general business stuff. Hey, this is the new provider coming on. Hey, so and so's leaving. Like you're doing that stuff anyway. So you might as well take 5 minutes. Hey, just want to bring this up real fast. I know that everybody knows where the PPE is. Here, this is where that policy and procedure is going to be. Hey, I know everybody knows where the sharps containers are, but I want to make sure that everybody knows they're here, and the log for if you get stuck is in this room. And this is the policy, this is the procedure, and this is where you can find it. You know what I mean? Like all of these basic things, again, common sense is a superpower nowadays. You will have at all levels people that will work with straight within the letter of what they need to do. You'll have a few people that'll do the intent of what needs to be done, but never the letter of what needs to be done. And then you'll have people that don't do anything at all, but they're still there for whatever reason, So, and if you don't know which one you are, don't worry. Ask one of your coworkers. They'll tell you. Right. So you're definitely going to fit in one of those categories, and you just got to figure out what kind of people you have, and that way you can coach accordingly. We have to look at this as coaching compliance rather than dictating or sermonizing compliance. It's very, very simple. This is dry information. No one likes to talk about compliance. Like it's not a fun topic. It's not, hey, let's go grab a drink after work and talk about compliance. That's not fun topics, So we've got to incentivize people.
Here's another question for you, Jose. So what would be better? Would it be better to have a compliance program that's within your state specific, or would you rather have one at the federal level?
6 of one, a half dozen of the other. I mean, so I think you need to be able to compare it apples to apples, right? So if I have a nationwide product versus a local product, I need to take into account the things that are important to me, right? Is there a significant price difference? Is there a significant difference in the product between the state side versus the nationwide side? Is there a difference with the people?
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't tell you one of my biggest salespeople. Yeah, all right, yeah, but again, Shelly, you're very specific. Your ASCs are very, very specific. But even with ASCs, if you were in Washington, the OSHA standards would be WISHA. And for ASCs, they would be a little bit more stringent. I'm seeing a lot of differences for dental. But I imagine for ASCs, you're right up there too, for being more stringent. But when it comes to nationwide versus statewide, state product, the people that work there are just as important. So if Ray doesn't know how to talk to people, but somebody else does, an inferior product could easily win simply because they're more friendly. This happens all the time in life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it has nothing to do with the product, it has everything to do with the salespeople. If you are in healthcare, all right, and this is a very unpopular opinion, and I hope that no one takes offense to it. Yeah, definitely, Shelly. The unpopular opinion is this: every single person that works for your organization is a salesperson. Every single one. There are only certain people that always get mentioned: the providers, the office managers. Sometimes it's billing staff because they're always having to explain ridiculous EOBs to patients, and patients are mad at them. But every single touch point is a sales point for your practice or against your practice. And in an age where everyone is transitioning to more and more patient responsibility, more and more transparency in price, which I wish they would smash the freaking insurances for that, but that's a whole nother bag of tricks. Uh, so, Price Transparency Act, making little guys do everything, but the insurances don't tell anybody what they're paying the providers. So we would go and say, you know, every single person is part of that. Just like every single person is part of the sales, part of the compliance, you have to make it a team sport. You have to make it a team sport. You have to start weeding people out by, are you on the team or not? Because we're reaching margins, we're reaching situations where you just can't afford to have bench players anymore in your practice, no matter the size. You just can't have it. I mean, because if they don't care and they treat the patient like crap, do you really think that they're going to be the best person in regards to being compliant to regulations? I'll wait. Go ahead. Think about that one for a second. You know what I mean? Like, do you really think that they're going to give a, I mean, and it may just be simply that they don't give a crap at all. They got not one duck to give. How? It's Monday, 8 a.m. I don't matter. It's not even Thursday yet, and they're done with the week, you know, and it's 10 a.m. on Monday. So I mean, it's honestly, it sucks because it seems like everybody still has help wanted signs and nobody's working. Like I don't know where everybody is, but we still have to weed out, either on purpose or on accident, the people that are not going to take this stuff seriously. I don't need you to be perfect. I don't want you to be perfect. I just want you to be aware and to try. Because if my staff, my team is aware and they try, my lawyer can defend that all day. All day.
Yeah.
Because nobody's perfect. Right? The human element's always going to screw stuff up with compliance. But if I can prove that we are trying our best to do what we can with our limited resources and our staff isn't, yeah, and our staff, it's not that they were negligent. It's that, hey, we're human. You're allowed to make a mistake. Now,
Right.
different kinds of mistakes have different penalties, whether you meant to or not, you know, like there's a difference between manslaughter and murder. And homicide, right? There's a difference there. I mean, yeah, person's still dead, but there's a major difference between, what is it, 2 to 5 to 20 versus 20 to life. You know what I mean? Like, come on. So luckily, normally, other than Shelly, who's in an ASC apparently on here, you know, most of us in the outpatient world are not dealing with genuine life or death situations. That's more on the facility side, on a day-to-day basis. We do need to be aware and just really coach that piece and really coach that, hey, we need to act as a team. If we don't, the whole team is going to fall apart, you know. For you football fans, Cam Newton, the Carolina Panthers, that's all I'm going to say. One bad apple ruins the whole bunch.
They have one good run.
Yeah, and he killed that run all on his own.
Yeah, he did.
All on his own. So, I mean, I know this one's a little bit shorter, guys, but it's the by and the core differences. The rules are the same. OSHA is one of those don't do stupid-ish in your office, you know, like document. This OSHA is all about the employees. It's all about worker safety. So document, know what the rules are, follow them, go from there. Either way, no matter what you have as a compliance program, where you get it from, you're going to have to customize it, because there's no possible way that a compliance program is going to be uniquely customized for every single client in every single industry and subspecialty in healthcare. It's just not going to happen. I don't run my mental health practice the same way as the other 4 or 5 practices that are in my county. We don't even see the same kind of patients. I punt some of my patients to them.
I was gonna say I'd still talk to your compliance vendors, you know,
No. You
and
need to talk to them because at the end of the day, who's on the hook?
yeah,
Your compliance vendor is not on the hook if you screw something up or you don't have something. You are, as the covered entity, you are on the hook for this. So you definitely want to be aware if there's a difference or ask if there is a difference. Just asking the question usually will put the back foot on a compliance company or a compliance vendor, and they'll do the research for you and say,
mhm.
yeah, there's a difference here. No, there isn't a difference there.
Well, like I said,
Right?
I go back to the Florida Department of Health. The couple customers we've had that have gone through that, and there's been some things that we've had to research for them and ultimately help them out. You know, they were able to come out of that unscathed, which is
Always good.
huge
It's
win
always
for
a
both
feather in your
parties.
cap.
And
Yeah, it's always a feather in your cap when you can do that.
oh yeah,
But
absolutely. And
but yeah, guys. So I mean,
take
actually,
advantage
you
of
know
your
what?
resources.
Absolutely. If you don't have, if your vendors, remember who's working for who, guys. As a covered entity, I have vendors. Their job is to do certain things for me, the covered entity. I am not here to do their job for them. I brought them in as a vendor because they are the subject matter expert in whatever I brought them in for.
Yep.
It is more than okay. It should be more than okay for me to ask whatever question I want in regards to X. I did not go to medical school, but when I'm out talking to people and they say, hey, my spouse has this or my friend has that, can you help them? I say, hold on, let me find out. Because I didn't go to med school. And as awesome as Google is, when I type in, how do I even spell that, sir? All right. And then, and it pops up. What? I didn't go to med school for that. That's what I have providers for. My providers don't know anything about IT. If there's a problem with the IT, they're calling my staff. My staff is either calling the EHR company or calling IT because they're doing basic troubleshooting. If I have a problem with a contract, I'm not going to ask my accountant, I'm going to ask my lawyer. If there's a problem with my payroll, if there's, you know what I mean? Like, this is why we cannot be afraid. We're not inconveniencing our vendors by asking them questions that we brought them in for. You got to ask the question. If you have the question, I guarantee you 3 other clients of theirs have had the question. Either they're good at answering the question or they're not. If they're not, the question to you is, should I do business with them? If you, all right, let me put it like this. If I ask an IT company for when we're doing an SRA for a practice, which this has happened recently, hey, you told me you're doing passive monitoring for a practice for the company devices. Yes, cool. You charge by computer, I'm sure, because everybody does when it comes to passive monitoring. Yes. Can you get me an inventory list for the practice's devices? No. Wait. Did you guys catch that? So the IT is charging the practice per computer to passively monitor and update the antivirus and anti-malware and all that fun stuff. But the IT company cannot get me a list of the devices that they are protecting because they don't have one. How does that make sense? When I sit down with the debrief, I'm going to ask the practice, is this guy family or not?
Yeah.
First, before I say anything. And then if they say, nope, not family, married to anybody, nope, friends, nope, okay, perfect.
That answers my question.
Answer my question.
Yeah.
That's That's like going to a dentist and saying, "Hey, when you inspected my teeth during that annual eval, did you see that I had all my teeth, or did you see that I was missing some teeth? No. Then what am I paying you for, bro?
Yeah.
Like what are we doing? That should tell you. If you have a question of your vendor, you should be able to ask them. They should be able to answer competently. If not, you need to find somebody else. It's that simple. When it comes to a compliance program, you can't afford to be wishy-washy.
No, 100%. 100%.
So guys, I hope that this was useful for you. I mean, I these hyper specific ones that are not that different, it's a little bit trickier to fill out the time, but Ray always helps me out with it. And no problem, Don. Ray, I think next week
We
I'm gonna
haven't
confirm
decided.
whether we have that guest,
Well, hang
or
on.
if not,
Let's ask audience.
yeah.
So we mention this every time, but if anybody has any topics that you'd like us to discuss, preferably compliance related, but we obviously we've done a couple here, some spin-off episodes. But if there's anything going on in your lives, compliance related, or just anything you'd like us to discuss, let us know. Throw it in the chat.
Really, anything healthcare business, but preferably with a compliance piece to it, so that way
Yes.
we can tie it in.
And we can certainly look to discuss that. This actual subject came from a customer, which is why we decided to roll with it. We had a customer that was located in Washington that was just asking, "Hey, what's the true difference between WISHA and OSHA?" And I mean,
There is so much.
ultimately, there's not a whole lot of difference. There's a couple things that are more strict
I can't even
about,
remember. Are they a dental, or I can't even remember what kind of practice they were.
but dental practice, yeah,
Oh
dental
yeah. So
practice.
yeah, so there's some,
So,
yeah, so they would fall under that. There's a few things that need to be tweaked more than not, but this is a good place to start. This is better than having nothing.
they're being proactive, right? They reached out to their compliance
Yes.
vendor and said, "Hey,
Yeah,
what is
exactly.
this
That's what
stuff?"
you need to do.
So, yeah, no, you need to be proactive. But yeah, not a whole lot of difference between the two, other than a couple things.
Yeah, but they're
But
easy tweaks. But yeah, so
absolutely,
I mean, if you guys got any suggestions, we're working on a couple interviews. One with a guy from Class Research. They do research for health IT organizations. So they're kind of like JD Power, but for health IT is the way that Trey put it. So we're gonna try to get him on, ask him some questions about stuff. Maybe even mess with him a little bit and see if there's been any changes with some of the agencies that got him in, some of the organizations that have gotten into trouble recently. Then we've got I know that Sam wants to come back as well. So if you guys have any legal
we got your dad too.
broad
Not
scope,
not this or next week, but the week after. We got your dad back on too.
are there compliance issues or concerns surrounding employee corrective action plans? Okay, so voluntary versus involuntary separation depends on a couple of factors. Okay, yeah. Okay, you
I
want to
like
do that
that
with the
topic.
lawyer? Yeah, we can do that with the lawyer all day. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, because Don, that one's one that I was about to say. I'm gonna have to we have to dive in to a couple of factors there, right? Just in the difference between process and procedure for voluntary versus involuntary separation.
That'd
You
certainly
know,
be a good one. Good question from
so
Sam. We can get her on.
yep, yep. So we'll definitely do that one. We'll probably end up doing that one before the end of the month, honestly.
Don, appreciate
So
it.
yeah,
That's a good one.
Dawn, I I am not surprised.
Keep 'em- keep them coming.
Healthcare attracts the crazies, man. Healthcare attracts the crazies. If the patients are bad, you'd be amazed by the employees.
I
And
certainly have seen some crazies on the compliance
it's
side.
and then the question is
Ransom
chicken or egg, right?
laptops and
Are the patients crazy because of the employees, or are the employees crazy because of the patients?
it could go both ways.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, so I mean,
Man.
we'll work on that for you, Dawn. We'll work on those other two interviews as well. I
Yeah,
was expecting
you
some.
guys will receive some correspondence from us. We haven't truly picked out a topic for next week, but these are certainly some good ideas. So
Yeah, yeah,
you'll get some correspondence with something that we picked. But again, these are all good topics and certainly things that we're going to be discussing here in the near future. And by the
absolutely,
way,
guys.
if anybody that is joining new, please, we've been doing these webinars since October of last year. We've done quite a few episodes. Um, check out our videos, like and subscribe if you haven't. And this video will be up as well. And usually turnaround time to get these episodes up about 24 or 48 hours max. So if somebody that you think would get some use out of this videos, please feel free to share it with them.
Yep, perfect, guys. So stay out of trouble. Be good.
Stay safe.
Yep, and then we'll see you guys next week.
Sounds good. Jose, stay out of trouble. I'll catch you on next week's episode. Whatever we
Definitely.
decide on.
Yep. Later.
Take care, everyone. Thank you. Take care, Shelly.